good. How's it going on your side?
All right.
Cool, man. Did you have any questions about the podcast, or are you ready to roll?
No, just generally an overview. Yeah, could you tell me a little bit about the podcast and what brings you to me? I love your email. It was pretty funny. I'm cracking up.
Yeah, thank you for that. I interview founders of various companies. It's pretty much conversational, questions about you, questions about Colbycoco, and how did I get you? Well, that's pretty much what I do. One of my business is a cold email business, so I specialize in sending great copy to the right people, and I do it for my podcast too. So I found you on LinkedIn. We add a company email to that, and we reach out to you. And I think you liked the email, so that was a success.
Where are you located?
I'm in Mexico. I'm from Montreal, Canada.
Okay, great.
Are you in New York, New Jersey?
My headquarters is in New Jersey, New York City area, but my main branch and our main practice is in the greater Boston area, Massachusetts.
Okay.
So
Pretty cool.
Pretty much cover the entire Northeast.
Nice. Ready to roll?
Yes.
All right, cool. Everyone, welcome to another episode of Founder Wisdom Podcast. Today we have Emin Muhammad. He is the founder of Colbycoco. Emin, can you introduce yourself and Colbycoco?
Hi, my name is Emin Muhammad, and I'm the owner of Colbycoco Vacation and Short-Term Rentals. I started out a long time ago, Charles. My day job was technology software developer, and I started that right after college. I was an IT graduate of Pace University in New York City, and then eventually we used to go out to these different states and build these large scale systems and multi-tier systems. We always needed corporate housing, and as a result, my ex-wife and I ended up buying real estate. So I moonlighted as a real estate agent, and that's where I am today. I ended up leaving corporate about 2015 is when we launched, and I've been an entrepreneur ever since. Left corporate, and now we help homeowners transform their vacation rental or their rental properties. And when I say transform, we transform it from a long-term to short-term.
Okay, long-term for short-term. Interesting. Where did the name Colbycoco came from?
The name Colbycoco was derived from my daughter. It's so funny. I don't know if you ever heard of Wendy's. Wendy's fast food restaurant. The owner named his restaurant after his daughter Wendy.
Okay.
And I took a similar approach, named my company after my daughter, her name is Colby.
Okay. Interesting. And why the Coco and why the Co? Because I see Colbyco, I see Colbycoco. What's the difference between both?
Well, the Colbyco LLC is our parent company, almost like if you think of Google, ABC is their parent. And our DBA is Colbycoco Vacation and Short-Term Rental. DBA for all you out doing business as.
Okay. So how does one convert like a short-term rental to a long-term rental? Like, do you scrape Airbnb? Do you reach out to these people and ask them if they would want to rent like minimum a month? And what does long-term mean? Is it minimum a month or is it 2, 3?
Well, let's just get on what the big problem is. The big problem is tenants, basically. What are problems? Traditional rentals, traditional long-term tenants. That's really the problem. Why is it a problem? Because oftentimes, a long-term tenant will have issues paying, whether it's a late payment, non-payment, and oftentimes it results into an eviction process where eventually the sheriff needs to come in and padlock the door. Another issue with long-term traditional rentals, and I say long-term, at least a year or more, it's a chance that your house is not going to be taken care of the way you take care of it. Okay. Homeowners typically take care of their house a certain way, and tenants, long-term tenants, take care of it their way, which is not oftentimes it jives with the way you do things. Another issue with long-term tenants is you may have a bad tenant in there who's like a nuisance to the neighborhood, noise.
Okay. Yeah.
How about pets? Even if you have a no pet clause in your lease, doesn't mean they won't sneak a cat in or a dog in. Wear and tear on your house. If you have somebody in your long-term tenant house, wear and tear. 365 days a year, there's somebody in your home beating on your home. You basically lose control of your house. You don't have access to it. And how about government imposed mandates, for example, rent stabilization, rent control? It's just a huge problem with landlord tenant relationships. That's part of the problem of long-term tenants. So the alternative or the solution is short-term, converting your house into a short-term, transforming it to a short-term rental. And in order to transform it, there's basically 5 tenants you need to be cognizant of. Then from property specifications to compliance, marketing, sales, and the big one is operations. What makes up operations? So if you can handle those 5 tenants and have a structured, systematic approach, you can transform your home basically overnight. I'm exaggerating, but you can transform your home from a long-term to a short-term. And how do we find people? We find people reach out to us, actually. And also we have traditional marketing forums, platforms. We use some great tools, and so that's how but oftentimes it's word of mouth, traditional marketing, and no, we don't scrape Airbnb. I like to say that we're more than property managers. We provide platform like an Airbnb, but we also provide professionalism, the property management piece, and it's very specialized. So
because I misunderstood. I misunderstood from long term. Well, actually, you do from long term to short term. I misunderstood from short term to long term. I get it now. But isn't the wear and tear bigger when it comes to short term? Because, for example, Airbnb does have ratings, right? So I am rated. If I bring chaos everywhere I go, I will have a crappy rating. No one will want to house me. If like, let's say you don't have this system of rating on your website, won't people like make more of a mess? And isn't there like more probability that some people will make a mess if they rent on the short term?
Not necessarily. In fact, emphatically no. Because let's say that same group, that bad group who had a 1-star rating on Airbnb.
Yeah.
Imagine that tenant rented your house for the entire year. So that person would be beaten on he's not going to change. He's the way he is, or she. And so for 365 days a year, some of the problems that I outlined at the beginning of our conversation, wear and tear of your house, noisy. You have that bad long-term tenant, so you're stuck with him and you lost control of your house.
Okay.
With the short term, you might have that same person, but he's in and out within a week. So he's in and out. You can recover your home, your property. You can recover from the damage he or she does. But also there's techniques involved to weed out those individuals. There's a lot of secrets involved, and from 20 years of doing this, we have a really good way to filter out bad short-term tenants. But again, if they through the cracks, you can mitigate the issues right away. You can employ some also technology to make sure it's not too like a noise sensor machine.
Yeah.
And there's a number of strategies. We're experts, so we pretty much figured out all the tricks of the trade. And
yeah. Legally, how long does it take to kick someone out of your property that is a nuisance to pretty much everyone?
Well, I've been doing this, like I said, for 20 years. Only full time, my own company since 2015, like I said, when we launched. But prior to that, when I moonlighted, my ex-wife and I's had a pretty robust practice. And out of the 20 years, we have never needed to evict a short-term tenant. However, long-term tenants, we had a few of those. So as far as when you say eviction, I'm assuming you're talking about long-term eviction process. That can take months.
Months, yeah. So that's the big problem here. I've dealt with a bunch of real estate investors, and they all told me about that. So yeah, that's definitely a problem that needs to be fixed. And I'm curious. Say that you meet like this random person and they want to rent your house. What data points do you analyze to make sure that they are a good tenant? I mean, you can probably look at some of their statements, or you can look at their employment, you can look at their social media. How do you know if someone is a good tenant or not a good tenant?
Are you talking about long term or short term?
Long term.
Long term, like all of the above you mentioned. Biggest thing that helped us weed out bad tenants is really getting referrals from their previous landlord and their previous landlord. So those are really our main approaches. We also have services where we do background checks and credit checks. So those are two of the really main areas that we have used in the past. We no longer do long-term tenant rentals. We no
Yeah.
longer do long-term because it's just so much better. You triple your revenue, your rent revenue is tripled. You also regain control. More importantly, you regain control of your home, because if you have somebody in there 1 year, 2 year, you're basically locked out of your home for 2 years. The short-term rental, you're locked out maybe for 7 days, and then you're back in. You can block out a month, you can block out weeks. You have a lot more flexibility. So not only do you triple the rent revenue, you have better control of your house. And when I say better control, you talked about damage to your house. Let's say there is damage. You're in there in a week to fix the damage. Whereas long term, that damage is able to fester. Like, let's say you have a simple water leak. Water leak can fester and result in mold and a costly remediation process. So, I mean, you'll find that leak in a week, after the short-term tenants check out, and you can mitigate and fix the problem.
Got it. Do you have because let's say Airbnb, I keep getting 1 stars because I keep disrupting everyone. They'll probably kick me out, right, as a guest. Do you have a system like that on Colbycoco?
Yes, we do. We have a database, and I'm a computer guy, so of course I have databases. We have a database, and we have a client file or table, whatever you want to call it. But one of the columns in our table is a flag based on category. So this tenant was bad because he was a nuisance. This person was bad because he didn't pay attention to the rules. And then we flag them and they cannot not stay in any of our homes.
How many properties do you have on the website right now, and how many guests in average? You can tell me the first statistics, just the number of property, and then the monthly active users.
We're a pretty new company. Like I said, we launched in 2015. It's been a slow growth. Right now, we have about 20 homes. We generated well over $1 million in revenues. We hosted over 1,000 people since we launched. I'm not even going back prior to we went, going solo or full time. But since we launched our company full time, those are pretty rough, and we're growing every day. We're at a stage now where we have the traction, we have the name recognition, especially in the Northeast, and we have the structure. We have our practice pretty much organized in a way that we learn from experience, and we're able to teach and execute those structures.
So do you still do like real estate investing, or are you still a realtor on the side while running Colbycoco?
I'm just the owner, founder of Colbycoco Vacation and Short-Term Rentals. And yes, if someone wants to buy a house, yes, we would be able to handle that. To answer your question, yes.
Okay, pretty interesting. I'm just curious. Let's rewind back the clock. What was the choice that pushed you to go like full time into Colbycoco?
Well, since college, like I said, I designed and developed systems for close to 30 years. And I would go around to these different states. My most recent project before leaving corporate was in Nashville, Tennessee. And in Nashville, my company wanted me to relocate full time to Nashville, as opposed to staying for a relatively short period of time. And at the time, my mom was really sick and needed, round the clock care. And she was lived in New Jersey, and just wasn't feasible. So we mutually decided to just part. And because I was still moonlighting, I'm like, okay, well, and at the time I was just doing my homes. And this was about 2000, 2013, 14 time frame. And so what happened was I said, okay, well, I have my own homes, and I was going through a divorce also around the same time, little post divorce. So I said, okay,
Rough period.
instead of just doing my homes, I'll also do other homeowners and let them know there's such a much better way of renting his or her home.
Hmm. So you made the jump basically from Xerox to full time at Colbycoco. Is that right?
That is exactly right. You did
How
your
does
homework, Charles.
how does one like stay 15 years at one company? Like, tell us a bit more about that stint of your life. Like, obviously the pay must have been good, but you kind of have enough. You had enough of the stability, right? Or you didn't feel like you grow enough. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
No, I love my job. I loved it. I loved the excitement. I loved the challenges that we were fronted with. We built mostly government, at least the latter part of my career, we built
Hmm.
government systems. Prior to that, I was always in I developed software in travel space. I don't know if you ever heard of Liberty Travel,
Nope.
one of the largest leisure travel agencies in the country. And I
Okay.
worked there for several years. So I knew how to design, I knew the travel space as a result. But at the same time, and this is earlier in my career, like a couple of years after college, I also received my real estate license during that time.
Hmm.
So the real estate and the hospitality kind of married inadvertently, were married. You know, my day job was developing travel space or related software. And then, my moonlighting job was renting out properties. I worked for Caldwell Banker, slot realtor at the time, was brought out by Caldwell Banker. And so, my day job was travel agencies and related application. My moonlight job was real estate. And so that's how my background came about. I ended up moving from the travel space to building business government systems. And and then so it was really exciting from day one to my last day. I always started out as a programmer, designer, manager, you name it. And then when I left the company, I'm like, okay, well, I'm doing pretty well on my moonlight. And this is the opportunity. If I'm going to do it, let's just dive in.
Hmm. All right. So I feel that you were doing well, but you also had the desire to start your own thing one day and, probably live the American dream or something, right?
It was funny because I didn't really plan to go solo. I was
Okay.
kind of like, okay, this is an opportunity to go solo. I would have continued doing, my day job and moonlighting as a real, continue doing that. I had no plans to really deviate from that approach or that road, that track. But
Mhm.
when the opportunity presented itself, um, yeah, I just expanded and blew it out and started managing for other homeowners, other landlords.
Yeah, I guess life is opportunity, and when you have one in front of you, recognize it and need to do the full jump, which is what you did here. I'm curious also, do you have employees right now, or are you solo in Colby?
Yeah, we have a partner. I have a partner who's like a financial guy,
Yeah,
and
your
then we have a
CFO.
head. Sorry.
Your CFO, right? That I'm seeing on your
Yes.
LinkedIn here.
Yep. Uh huh.
Okay.
And we also have a top salesperson. So, and then we have vendors. We have what we call a resource database, vendor database, and then we're able to dispatch based on category to the job.
So if you did over like a million and you have 20 properties this year, what are your goals this year? Do you want to grow to 30? Do you want to go to 40? Also, do you want to expand outside the regions that I see here, Boston and Cambridge, Massachusetts, New York, etc.? What are your goals this
Uh,
year?
yeah, we're looking to double this year. We're looking to double in size at
Okay,
the very least. And
40
also we have
properties and let's say like 1.5 this year or 2 million. Was the million yearly or was it like since you started?
Oh, well, no, it's more than a million over the years. I don't have the exact number in front of me, but we're looking to gross in revenue this year. Um, I would say 500,000 to 600,000. So it's
That's
not a
great.
million a year yet, but we're like I said, we plan to double this year, and also we have a e-learning track where we
Okay.
train to address your other question. Do we plan to expand it to different states? California, Texas, Wyoming, Colorado? No, not necessarily, but we have an e-learning side that will teach property managers who aspire to be short-term rental property managers, and they can go through a training session with our company.
And how much
Because
should
we
they
have
pay for
we
the training? For example, we'll give them a certification as well. Like if I want to become more schooled on that level, how much should I pay for your e-learning?
yeah, you'll have a completion certificate that you completed our training.
Mhm.
And again, it really dives in deep into the five tenants, and really five tenants to this business. And those tenants can really explode out to, really granular pieces, including technologies and policies, procedures, and just a lot. But at the highest level, it's just five areas you just need to address. And if you address those five areas, the end result is you go live. And when you go live, it's really nice because it's almost like back in the day, even nowadays, New York City, they used to have these medallions, and once you have that medallion, it was really gold. I mean, you could drive your cab and make crazy money. A
Okay.
lot of the states, those cities, municipalities have these regulations where you're required to have a medallion like piece of document or registration. Regulations is a really big deal. If I would suggest training just for regulations and compliance alone, you know, that's one of the five tenets, by the way. But anyway, make a long story short, once you have that medallion, you can make a lot. You can triple your rental income, basically.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. I'm curious on the 500K you mentioned per year. What are the margins in there? If I want to get like in the same business, what would be my cost? Is it like 50% profitability margins? What does it look like? And what are my expense?
Well, it's interesting because you know it's a lot of ways you can generate revenue.
Yeah.
And I'm just talking about rents. I'm just talking about rents. When I pushed out that over $1 million number, it's just rents. But there's
Okay.
other revenue. And
Okay.
so with rents, it depends on what your model is, but
Mhm.
our spread is 25% for the most part.
Okay.
But there's other areas where it's 50, 60, even 100%.
100%. Holy moly. I want
Yeah.
that one.
Well, there's some of the smaller services that we provide. So you have rent, you have cleaning fees, for example, you have other services. Because
Mhm.
when you have a house, one of the tenants, again, we talked about compliance, is property specifications. What type of work do you need on your house? Do you need to add a room? So those are other opportunities.
Okay.
And I can keep on and on.
Yeah. So let's say 25% average. Your website, did you build it yourself or did you had someone do it for you?
No, I could have built it myself, but not, no. We licensed our software through a third party, and yeah, had really good experience with them. So yeah, one day that would be nice if I have it. If I was able to secure, um, investment.
Mhm.
That was something I would definitely want to look into building out our own system, because oftentimes when you is off the shelf licensed software platforms, you oftentimes you don't need all the features that they provide. You might just need really the nitty gritty. Is it an order instance system? Okay, or is it tracking dates? I mean, really beyond that, maybe housekeeping, tracking, but a lot of features that's not really needed. And I would propose a scaled out version of just to mirror our operation.
For sure. If I want to rent you my property, well, if I task you to rent my property, what's the deal? I guess I sign a contract. I cannot rent on Airbnb. Can I? What can I do and what can I not do?
Well, basically, you turn over the keys to your Mercedes to our
Hmm.
company
Hmm.
and let us drive it. And so we're full service, and yes, you will sign a contract agreement. And once we take over your home, we full service it. from property specs to compliance, marketing, sales, operation, technology. We take care of everything. Guest fulfillment, which is really the biggest boots on ground is the operations or guest fulfillment.
Mhm.
Making sure the house is up to par, making sure you have all the supplies you need, making sure the client had or the guest has, really a guidebook related to what the rules are, what you can do, um, what are the areas, just other nuances of the house. You have to just make sure you communicate that, and really that's where the boots on ground come into play. You make sure you have a plumber on hand, or so.
Yeah,
And
someone
all
to
being a
make the
homeowner.
repairs and stuff.
Sorry.
Someone to make the repairs and stuff. You take care of everything. Basically, it's key in hand.
Yes, turnkey basically.
Okay. If well, I mean, let's say that I'm in the Boston area. The occupancy rate is like 60%. There, meaning that I'll have 60% of the time a guest booking my property. In your case, can you do you guarantee occupancy rate, or do you estimate them? Let's say the Boston area. What does the average occupancy rate look like?
Yeah, that's a good number. That's a good number. And what's
60.
nice about that, let's say it's 60%. Let's say it's 60% booked out 365 days a year.
Mhm,
You'll still, at the very least, double your rental income with that
mhm.
amount, and you have that ceiling to push it to triple or even 4 times the amount. So,
Okay.
but the nice thing about it, let's say it's just constant, 60%, and you don't
Mhm,
go over for a given year. You have
mhm.
40% where no one's in your house. You can enjoy it yourself. Depreciation is lessened. Um, the neighbors are loving it. Nobody's around. I mean, it's just so you're making the same amount of money. You regain control of your house, and you streamline the operation, and you basically live a easier, happier life. Basically homeowners, because homeowners go through a lot now with tenants. Long-term tenant and landlord relationships could really be a problem, from
Mm.
communication to really they become part of your family. They're there every day. They're talking to you. Hey, I'm late this month because of my wife I just had a kid. They really become part of your family. And do you really want that? I mean, if you have guests, they're in and out, nothing personal. They pay beforehand, so you don't have to chase them down. It's just a much better renting model.
So let's say like 210 days a year, my property is rented. Let's say at $300 average per night. That's $63,000. And you take what's your management fee on that? Is it like 25%?
Correct.
Okay, so that's pretty good actually. But I mean, there's still the mortgage to factor in the equation. Like, how much do I pay yearly? But let's say that we chop this 63K in 4 times 3. That's like $50,000 in my pocket per year. Is it fair to say that I pay less in mortgage? Yeah, like probably less than $50,000 a year. Probably pay the average person for a house. What do they pay per year? Like $36,000
Oh,
in
in what?
mortgage.
In mortgage? 36. I don't know if that's average. It seems a little bit high, but let's
Okay,
just use 30,000 as a baseline.
because I'm seeing those beautiful properties on your website, and I'm guessing that they cost a whole lot to build.
Right. So, and then another thing, you can, unlike long-term tenant and landlord regulations, where there might be rent control in place, you
Yeah,
can push up your numbers. So that 300 could easily be 400. And one of
yeah.
the one of the technologies we employ, strategies we employ, is we use dynamic pricing. And
Okay,
so if in Boston, for example, the Boston Marathon, so our
yeah.
regular rate might be $300 that night, but I mean $300 a night. So for the Boston Marathon, we push it up to $600 a night because that's what the market demands.
Thank you for that.
So
I'm a runner. Thanks for doing that. No, I see you, because when I book my Ironmans, or like all these crazy events, I see the prices skyrocket like 2 or 3x. That's what I'm saying.
right, exactly. So So
But
yeah,
that,
those numbers are on average baseline lower, but you can tweak so many things where you can't tweak so many things in long term.
yeah, yeah. Airbnb, how much do they charge in percentage? And I know I'm comparing an apple with a pear, but like, how much do they charge Airbnb?
Percentage wise, I'm not sure to be honest. I mean,
I
we
think
have
it's
a
like 10
commercial.
or 15.
Yeah, VRBO, I know off the top of my head is like 10%.
Okay.
So the numbers would be in line with that.
But I guess it's really
Depending
for
on what type of
someone
account you.
that doesn't want to like take the management themselves. They're like retired or even semi-retired. They don't want to spend time like talking with guests, or maybe they're introverts, maybe they just want to outsource it fully and spend their time doing something that they like, or spend some time doing something that can generate them more money, right?
Right, right.
I guess that's a use case here. I mean, we're over the time now. I just want to ask you a couple of things, because honestly, you look pretty good. You look pretty fit. You have like habits that keep you like healthy and productive and smart as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a former athlete. I was a basketball player in high school and college. In high school, we had one of the best teams in the state of New Jersey, which is like very competitive state. Some of the best players come out of New Jersey. So we were
Mm,
number 5 in the state, a really good team. I ended up receiving an athletic scholarship at Pace University and became one of the leading scorers in Pace University that year.
nice.
Um, and so I was always an athlete. So post career, I was supposed to play in Europe, tore my knees up, and my career was effectively over.
Mm.
So, trying to rebuild my legs and I just continued to work out my entire adult life. So yeah, I'm still in shape.
So nowadays, do you go run? Like, do you eat healthy? Because I see lots of entrepreneurs. They most of the time they look a bit like overweight and stuff and anxious. Like, what are the habits that keep you healthy nowadays? What does your day look like? You wake up at like 7, and then what happens?
That's an interesting question. Well, wake up at 7, have a well-rounded breakfast, including hard-boiled eggs, oatmeal, tons of fruit inside, sprinkle of cinnamon, and coffee. Of course, coffee. Can't live without that. That's probably the worst thing. A big glass of water. So that's breakfast. And lunch, I have an equally well balanced lunch. It might be a tuna lunch. I rarely eat poorly, and I work out. I jump rope. I can jump rope forever, and I go to the gym. I weight train just to
Nice.
stay fit and keep the stress at a reasonable level.
Cool. If you would have to tell something to a new founder, a new entrepreneur, what advice would you give them?
I would advise them to strategize,
Okay.
figure
Why?
out, sit down, strategize, because oftentimes people just say, "Hey, I got this great product and I'm just going to run with it."
Mm,
Whether it's, I'm going to start selling T-shirts, or I'm going to start a lawn business, landscaping business. I would say really plan out your approach. And if you don't align it with the web, the internet, if you're not selling while you're asleep, and you're really taking a brick and mortar approach, I think those times have passed.
yeah,
I mean, you can still do it in order to be the best you can be. You have to have a sound business model that's aligned with technology.
for
So
sure.
make sure you strategize, think it out, talk to folks. Have coaches. I love coaches. Coaches are great. You have to pick
Coaches
the
are
right
great.
coach. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Emin, for everything that you've shared today. It's been very valuable. I'll advise you when the podcast will be online. All right.
Thanks, Charles. It
All right.
sounds good.